Newly released exploit code brings us one step closer to the next worm.
So, Matt, I understand you've got a story about uh, wormable remote code execution.
It's not exactly a new story, but it's a step above the old story. So this is SMB Ghost. Everyone who uses CVE numbers calls it 2020-0796. It was released back in March, and at the time, it was considered a vulnerability to watch out for. Patches were issued out of cycle, which is it means it's something that Microsoft really cares about. And it's a bug in SMB. This is something you would use to share files, printers, and other things across a network. Usually, I mean, I expect to see it inside of an internal network. Apparently, some people like to put it on the internet, which I think is a terrible idea. But anyway, for a while, it's been known that the vulnerability exists. It's also been kind of difficult to exploit. And there is now open source code on GitHub. Somebody named Chompy1337 or Chompy Leet, however you want to say that, um, posted there and says it's very unreliable, but it is exploit code. So in the past, it was that the bug exists, we know it exists. Some people had the code and weren't willing to share it because it was a wormable bug. The last time we had big wormable bugs like this, we had things like WannaCry and NotPetya. It's a big thing. It's not something you just send out into the world lightly. Except now that we have this code in the world, it's not perfect. It doesn't 100% of the time execute the exploit correctly, and that's a good thing, I guess. The person who posted it said not to use it outside of a lab environment. Use the phrase "puppies will die," which I think is probably hacker humor, but also it's a serious thing to think about. Is that this is a bug with some real implications. So anyway, there is a patch for this. This is something that has been patched for a while, uh, at least by Microsoft. I mean, there are people out there who are probably still running unpatched. It affects Windows 10 and Windows Server versions 1903 and 1909 of each. Um, so what I would say at this point is really keep an eye on this because even if this version of the bug doesn't work perfectly, we are one step closer to having a version of it that does. So if you haven't patched this yet, now is absolutely the time to patch.
This does not affect 2004.
As far as I read, it affects the 1903 and 1909 versions of both Windows 10 and Windows Server. I don't know about 2004.
Okay, because 2004 has just started rolling out in the last 4 weeks or so.
Okay, if that's the case, I mean, since
Or
this was a bug from March, I would expect any newer versions to also be patched to them.
that would be a good thing because
Yeah.
and it seems like these things get patched in March and then get exploited in June. Because WannaCry was patched in March and the exploit came out or, the breakout occurred in June.
Hmm.
This one got patched in March. It's now June and the exploit is out there. Is history repeating itself?
It really depends on what we learned from the last time. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were in IT back during WannaCry, hopefully you've learned that lesson. And anybody who would stand in your way from allowing you to patch this has also learned something from it. I would hope.
I would hope.
Yeah. So let's see. What do you think, Andy?
Well, I think you're right in taking it as seriously as you are, because the last time we saw a wormable SMB worm like this was pretty serious, as we all know. So I think it's important to make sure all your systems are patched so that you're not vulnerable to this. But one aspect of that, I think, for IT folks out there is to understand their universe, so to speak, of systems. Because I know an issue that you could run into is you can patch all the machines that you know about or that you can reach,
Hmm.
but inevitably, especially with larger enterprises, there's going to be those machines that are just kind of sitting there. And maybe no one remembers that they're in that closet, or maybe someone lost the key to that closet or something.
Hmm.
A good step just to you should do this proactively. You should just understand where all your devices are and who manages them. But patching is important, but understand the machines that you have on your network that may or may not need to be patched.
Yeah, and I think that go along with that, understand which of the devices that you think are just appliances actually run Windows. Because I know that we heard all sorts of stories of very interesting devices that you would not have expect to run Windows. that were vulnerable to Eternal Blue and therefore affected by WannaCry. So yeah, asset control is a big deal, and definitely something you should be doing already, so that you don't have to do it after the fact and clean up that mess.